So, dear guests, dear friends of the IDM from Vienna and from all the world, welcome to all of you to today's event on the Slovenian parliamentary elections. The Institute for the Danube region and Central Europe is organizing, together with our partner organizations, Campus Tivoli and the Karl Renner Institute, a series of discussions ahead of the parliamentary elections in Central and Southeastern Europe. My name is Peter Techet. I'm research associate at the IDM here in Vienna. I'm responsible for the analysis of political and legal developments in Slovakia, Hungary, and the Western Balkan countries, so also for Slovenia, even if I don't want to start now the whole debate whether Slovenia belongs to Balkans or not. We all know the famous video of Slavoj Žižek about this question. But firstly, on behalf of the Karl Renner Institute, Dr. Gerhard Marchel will now welcome you. Gerhard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much. A warm welcome also from my side. I'm Gerhard Marchel. I'm responsible for European affairs at the Karl Renner Institute. And as Peter said, we are organizing this event and other events in the forefront of parliamentary elections in Central, Eastern and Southeastern Europe together, the IDM, Campus Tivoli and the Karl Renner Institute. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank the IDM and the Campus Tivoli for the good cooperation that we always have. In person, I would like to thank Peter Techet and Laura Farley from Campus Tivoli. Thanks a lot. Yeah, when it comes to Slovenia, yesterday, maybe you've heard it or read it in the media. Yesterday, the Varieties of Democracy Institute of the University of Gothenburg in Sweden published its annual report on the state of democracy across the world. And the main focus lies in this report on the developments in the US, of course, with Trump and the worrying trends towards some sort of autocracy also in the US. But Slovenia is also mentioned in this report. And Slovenia is identified as a country that is undergoing autocratization. So this means it is not regarded as an autocracy, but as an electoral democracy, not a liberal democracy, as an electoral democracy with autocratizing elements. And I think this is worrying. And this autocratization, some elements of autocratization, is not new. It started a few years ago under Janez Janša. And what is also worrying is that also in the past few years, this trend did not stop. Yeah, maybe this is something that we also can discuss later on in this event. Putting this report aside, what we see in Slovenia is a highly polarized political landscape with the center-right and the center-left camp, very much attacking each other on every occasion. This polarization is not new. It has been existing for decades, I would say, as an observer from outside. And this polarization overshadows, of course, also the electoral campaign that we see now. When Slovenia has elections on Sunday, it will be quite an exciting evening because the polls show a quite tight competition between center-left and center-right. And the main question is how the smaller parties that could enter the parliament will decide. Will Janez Janša be able to form a new coalition, or will the center-left camp be able to remain in power? This will be one of the questions that will be discussed later on. Thanks a lot to the three excellent panelists that we have. Peter will present them, will introduce them in detail to you later on. Yeah, there are many things and questions to discuss. As I said, the scenarios for the coalition, but also the electoral campaign, what are the main themes in this electoral campaign, but also the question of democracy, the question of foreign policy, which developments will be seen after this election under the new government, and also the question of the polarization between the two camps, as I mentioned. Having said all this, again, many thanks to the cooperation partners and to the three panelists. I wish you all a fruitful debate, and I would like to hand over now to Peter. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Gerhard, for your talk, and of course for the whole cooperation with Karl Renner Institute and the campus Tivoli. As I mentioned, we are organizing always this kind of events about the elections in our region, in our target region. So I would like to describe briefly, very briefly, the situation in Slovenia, because of course we have excellent panelists who can help us to understand the situation in Slovenia. But you know that on March 22, Slovenia will elect a new parliament. There are 16 lists running, but not all of them really have a realistic chance of getting over 4% and entering parliament. What already seems clear is that the new parliament will be quite diverse, heterogeneous, so it's uncertain whether we will see a government that is ideologically unified, meaning either poorly center-right or poorly center-left. From abroad, but also many ways within Slovenia itself, the key question is also, as Gerhard mentioned, whether Janez Janša and his Democratic Party, SDS, can return to power. Some people even warn about the possible urbanization of the country if Janša wins. At the same time, we have to know that Janša is still part of the European People's Party, and of course, he won't be able to govern alone like Viktor Orban in Hungary. So maybe the comparisons with Orban's Hungary are probably a bit exaggerated, but we will see it. In today's discussion, we are lucky to have excellent experts from Slovenia with us who can help us better understand the political situation and the challenges the country is facing. So I would like to warmly welcome Metka Mayer. She is a journalist at Pop TV in Ljubljana. Dr. Manca Grigic-Renko, she is a historian now at the University of Vienna, but I think you are now based in Ljubljana, and Dr. Marko Zajec, also historian at the Institute of the Contemporary History in Ljubljana. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Before we start the discussion, I will briefly describe the situation, what the domestic political landscape, how the domestic political landscape looks like, and what chances the different parties have. So first, the electoral system. The Slovenian parliament, the Državni Zbor, has 90 members. Out of these, 88 members are elected from 8 constituencies in the country, while 1 seat each is reserved for the Italian and the Hungarian minorities. Each constituency in Slovenia has roughly the same number of voters, and within each constituency, 11 seats are distributed among parties that get at least 4% of the national vote. Voters can also give a preference vote to a specific candidate on a party list, which can change the original ranking of candidates. And the two minority seats, so for the Italian and Hungarian minorities, they are elected using the first past the post system. So basically, whoever gets the most votes wins. As Gerhard mentioned, Slovenia is a polarized country since the independence in 1992. Slovenian politics has been shaped by a strong polarization between the liberal center-left bloc and the national conservative center-right bloc. For a long time, the center-left bloc was dominated by the Liberal Party, LDS, which was also some kind of a post-communist party, which stayed in power until 2004, when they lost the majority. And since then, the center-left bloc has been much more fragmented, with new parties, new movements, and fragment reorganization. That is a typical moment maybe we can talk about a bit in Slovenia, that at the center-right, at the center-left, we have always a new party emerging. In 2014, Miro Cerar managed to bring much of the electorate of former LDS together. In 2018, Marian Šarec became prime minister, even though his party only came second. And 2022, so 4 years ago, Robert Golob won the election with his newly founded Freedom movement. On the other hand, the center-right has been more stable. The Slovenian Democratic Party, SDS, led by Janez Janša, has remained the dominant force among the center-right parties. Of course, we can also, or we have to also discuss whether Janša is a center-right politician or more a right-wing populist. Other moderate conservative parties like the Slovenian People's Party and New Slovenia mainly attract voters who are maybe a bit critical of Janša. Janša himself has served as prime minister in Slovenia 3 times, from 2004 to 2008, from 2012, from 2018, and from 2020 from 2022. After the 2018 elections, Marian Šarec formed a government without Janša, but he resigned in 2020 due to conflicts within the coalition. And instead of early election, Janša returned to power with a rather heterogeneous coalition, as some of former partners of Šarec switched sides. But in 2022, Janša lost again, because at that point, 4 years ago, or more than 4 years ago, a previously small Green Party was taken over by Robert Golob, a former energy sector manager, and he turned this party into the Freedom movement. And this new social liberal party won the election 4 years ago and formed a relatively stable coalition with the Social Democrats and the more radical left party, Levica. The Golob government has followed the liberal and progressive agenda, focusing on strengthening democratic institutions, rule of law, social policy, etc. But the coalition was ideologically quite diverse, and that has led also to tensions. There have been disputes, especially over pension reform, tax reform, energy policy, and state subsidies. These conflicts reflected the differences between the more economically liberal freedom movement, the Social Democrats, and the more radical Levica. Within Levica, not everyone accepted these compromises. Some members left and formed a more radical group called We Socialist, although the government still kept its majority. And at the same time, some Levica politicians, including the former parliamentary group leader, Matej Tašner-Vatovec, moved to the Social Democrats. On the opposition side, Janez Janša has remained a central figure, but there are also tensions within the conservative camp, because in 2023, his former foreign minister, Anža Logar, left the Slovenian Democratic Party and founded a new party called the Democrats. And it's still unclear whether this party will become a real alternative to Janša, or this party wants mainly to attract moderate voters who might later support a Janša-led government. Since 2022, even referendums also played a very important role in Slovenian politics. Shortly after the government took office, a referendum approved reforms in public broadcasting. In 2020, 5 referendum rejected the law on special pensions for artists. In the same year, voters approved the so-called Šutar Act, which expanded, let's say, police powers in so-called risk areas, despite criticism from minority representatives, because the critics was that this shooter act was mostly against the Roma minority. And in November 2025, a referendum on assisted dying was rejected by the voters. How the election campaign looked like? The election campaign is really centered on the question whether Janša can return to power or not. His party is still leading in the polls with around 25 to 30%, but he will definitely need coalition partners if he wants to govern. Important players here are the newly founded Democrats, as well the moderate conservative alliance of the Slovenian People's Party and New Slovenia. And it's still unclear whether Janša and other center-right parties would cooperate with the populist and EU-critical party Resnica if it makes into the parliament. Janša himself remains a very polarizing figure in Slovenian politics. He is always described as the Slovenian Orban. So center-left parties are campaigning strongly against his return, and they warn about the possible urbanization of Slovenia. As I mentioned, SDS is still part of the European People's Party, so they did not join the far-right patriots. However, Janša does maintain close ties with Hungarian Prime Minister Orban, who has helped build a pro-SDS media network in Slovenia. On the other side, the current center-left government has lost quite a support. So Golob's freedom movement has dropped by more than 10 percentage points. The Social Democrats have stayed relatively stable, while Levica, despite earlier internal splits, has managed to strengthen its position partly through cooperation with the Green Party and may even do better than 4 years ago. However, according to the polls, these three parties together will probably no longer have a majority in parliament. That means they would need support from other, maybe more moderate or even center-right parties. So the key question is whether Janša critical center-right parties, People's Party, New Slovenia, maybe even the Democrats, would be willing to support a center-left government. So overall, we will see a fragmented and polarized parliament where neither Janša nor Golob can form an ideologically coherent government on their own. Both will depend on centrist forces, which could help to reduce the polarization. That is maybe a hypothesis of mine. Janša may have to make compromises to gain support from moderates, while Golob may need to offer concessions that could create tensions within his own coalition, especially with Levica. So, as I mentioned, we have excellent panelists who can help us to understand the Slovenian politics. So my first question is, as I mentioned in the polls, Janez Janša's party, SDS, is leading, but it will certainly not be able to form a government on its own. So it's not a situation like in Hungary we have. So why there is still warning about the urbanization of Slovenia. So even if Janša returns to the power, he will need coalition partners, mostly from the moderate conservative parties. Can we see this kind of issue as a limitation of the power of Janša if he returns? Of course, we will speak about it, whether he will return. Maybe Marko Zajc, can you explain why there is this fear of the urbanization of Slovenia in case Janša returns to the power?
Thank you very much for the question. The question is, of course, very on the spot, but the few answer would be because of our experiences, because of the experience of political space. Janez Janša governs always, even if he gets one vote or even minority, as if he is the king of of all time. So. One of the most important things about the Slovenian people, you explain this kind of central-right scene, but I would turn around. The fact is that despite the fact that Janez Janša is still in the European People's Party, which tells a lot about European People's Party, I'm afraid, he could be by every factor described as populist, right-wing populist. What those centrist party others do is to actually support those populists. So it's as we said, usually we describe those parties as satellites. So they will support that. But there's a big question about the Logar, the Democrats. Are the Democrats there to it's just a deal with Janša, or he's trying to pursuing his own political project? Well, I think the question is both. Obviously, he's playing about this double game, and as in good old spy movies. And I think that we will see how it will turn out. It depends how what this actor wants. But first of all, the fact that he is not opposing Janez Janša is the reaction of Janez Janša media outlets who were leaving relatively alone. Because usually when someone opposes Janez Janša, it's been attacked really on the low level with it. It's a very distasteful campaign usually. This is not so with Logar. On the other hand, one does not go on a personal project, on a political project, just to be servant to someone. So we'll see how it will turn out. But most of the commentators in Slovenia, they present that Logar as part of a right-wing bloc. It's very clear. So I don't think most of the people interpreted from on the left and on the right that this is the Logar's position. And the question, maybe I'm sorry, maybe just this: is this warnings about urbanization true? Yes, it is, because we don't have the majority system. We have proportional system, but through those parties, Janez Janša will try to pursue it. It doesn't mean that he will succeed to be an Orban immediately, but he will try to get as much more. So he will attack media, try to control NGOs, and all the playbook from Orban and also the Trump. So yes, those fears are I think understandable.
And Metka Maja, so what does Janša promise for the Slovenian society? So I can suppose that it's maybe not the urbanization of the whole country. So why Janša can still attract, let's say, 25, even 30% in the society? It is because of the cultural war, when Janša is positioned at the very right side, or there are other issues when Janša can promising something for the Slovenian society?
Well, the deal also with Janez Janša is, of course, that he's been a political figure for the past, ever since the independence in Slovenia. And what he managed to do is to get a very, very, very firm base of his voters, and his way of governing, or being the politician only, as a part of opposition, has changed a lot through this decades. But what does he promise? The current position is that, of course, that the rhetoric that he will turn around all the decisions made by this current government that are being presented as bad for Slovenia's economy, bad for Slovenia's people, and bad for Slovenia's, I don't know how to say, some representative of perhaps more the regional of the regions, because as we know, the left is always very stronger in the cities, but he's very strong in the suburbia. What does he promise? Yes, this has always been. He has managed to set this position on the right, and what is the way the Slovenian electoral system works? Yes, of course, is, as you mentioned, he never goes up over this some kind of a level, but he never goes also below. So what will always happen is that the elections are actually decided on the voter turnout, because that is where the difference becomes. The more voters come to the elections, the more the left usually gains, because he has this firm base that is very certain for him. And as far as urbanization is concerned, I wouldn't say, as I said, of course, it's not about this majority that is possible in the Hungarian system. It's about the way of governance, yes, that also Marco spoke about before, and also his stances inside of the European Union and in terms of the new world, the new world order that we are living in.
So we will address also the foreign policy that Mansarenko's Janša was 3 times prime minister. So when we are speaking about urbanization, there is some kind of experiences in Slovenia. So what do you think, what is the big fear of the Slovenian left wing or even liberal voters? What can happen when Janša can return to the power?
Thank you very much for inviting me and for the question. First of all, I would like to say that Janša's SDS changed from a, let's say, conservative party to a proper alt-right party. And this has happened over the years, but I would say in the last 5 years, it's escalated. So what they promise to their voters is very similar to what I would say Donald Trump promises or Viktor Orban promises. And this is this sort of rural imaginary of national colors and patterns, nationalistic rhetorics, so-called family values, very strong Catholic orientation, which is getting stronger and stronger. And it's not that this image wasn't present before, but I think what really makes him an alt-right party now is the way he uses media. And here I mean especially social media, his media, and also alternative media and influencers. And what makes him similar, I would say, to Viktor Orban or Donald Trump is that the way he sees his governing is always essentially a promise of a year zero. That means that he will return Slovenia to this. He will start all the institutions from point zero, from ground zero, placing his allies in the key positions across the country, and launching, I would say, let's say, a cultural conservative revolution. And this approach emphasizes, like on the visual level or intellectual level, very strong anti-intellectualism, this sort of domestic art and dismissal of any opposition that exists. So I would say this is what makes him maybe dangerous, but also, maybe we'll speak more about this later, is also that the world has changed drastically. So when Janša came to power years ago, the world was a bit different. And if we were worried about the autocracy, or Slovenia didn't want to be like the autocratic country at that time, I think autocracy is something that's quite common, and his allies abroad are stronger than they were before.
If you mentioned his allies, it's still interesting that Janša remained in the European People's Party, so he didn't join the Patriots or the ECR of Giorgia Meloni. What do you think, Mansarenko, why he is still in the European People's Party? So Marco Zajc said that it's maybe the problem of the European People's Party and we should ask them, but we don't have any representatives of the EPP. So what is your opinion? Why is Janša still in the EPP? Why he didn't left the EPP in order to join Orban's and Salvini's and new Patriots movement?
Janša is a very, very good politician. And he's also the most skilled politician at the position of power in Slovenia right now. And also, I would say, one of the most skilled politicians in European Union. And I think it's clear to him that European People's Party is important for strategic reasons. Janša doesn't want to be, despite the fact that his media pretends to be an, let's say, underground disruptive party. He doesn't want to be that. He wants to be a strong mainstream party, and he understands that in order to lead, in order to be successful, he needs a strong institutional background. And I would say that EPP gives him exactly this. So yeah, that would be my guess.
But do you think it will stay in this situation, or maybe Janša will be moving more toward Giorgia Meloni or Viktor Orban in the future?
I think he can do both. You know, I think the ideal position for him would be to still have the security, let's say, institutional security of the EPP, and the rhetorics of Giorgia Meloni and Viktor Orban. So then he can have the best of all worlds. And here is, if I come back to Marko Zajec, this is also a question for the EPP party, not only for Janez Janša.
And Metka Majer, in Slovenia, there are also other EPP members party, the Slovenian People's Party, New Slovenia, and I don't think that the Democrats are in the EPP, but they are quite close to the ideology EPP. So what are the main differences between or among those right-wing parties? So we have the SDS with Janša, and we have People's Party, New Slovenia, Democrats. They can form a government maybe with Janša, even limiting him, or they are completely alliated with Janša.
Well, we have two different stories here. So when it comes to Nova Slovenia, they have distanced themselves a little bit in the previous government, a little bit from Janez Janša, but he always manages to not to totally control them, but they are all the time aligned. They had the keys to the if the government fails or does not fail, and they decided to be there. And then that was under the previous president, and the previous president of the party also said that he will, after this government, that he will not go with Janez Janša again because it hurts the party. But what happened then is they changed the president of the party, although this was some kind of a party decision, but now the stance is different. The Nova Slovenia, the New Slovenia, is now in this campaign. It looks like it is absolutely totally aligned with Janez Janša, in a sense that they represent a different alternative for Slovenia in comparison to this left government. So here I see absolute alignment and no question whether the Janša will be the one that will form a government, that if they will go to this government or not, they will. For the Democrats, yes, this was mentioned before. There is a big question. It has been for the past 2 years. What is Anže Logar's story here? The actual story. There are two possibilities of this, and both have several information that confirm both of the stories. But I guess we will see that maybe more clearly, not sooner than the next week.
So the two stories are whether Logar...
Whether this is an aligned operation with Janša, so that he forms a new party, and that he represents like a more moderate or modest, more moderate version of the right, of the center right. It means that he maybe can attract those voters that are right wing, but say Janez Janša is not the solution, or whether he is sincere and honest in this, that he wants to do a different story, like something that goes, like he always says, that is broader in political wideness. He always emphasizes that. And here he will be the one, because he really is not very concrete on this matter. The question that I have all the time is whether he sees the political wideness, like in forming a government over the center, so between the left and the right, or whether he sees himself and his party already as this political wideness, that he is the one that is not that that very strict in this matter. So this will be a very big question, and in this sense, he will be also, I believe, the one that will have a very big say into what the next government will look like. There are information that, of course, also the left is counting on this, but yes, of course, there will be in this proportionate system there will be a lot. A lot will be at stake when we see the exact numbers. One more thing is there is also, of course, a question of motive for Jean Logar, because he was the foreign minister in Janez Janša previous government, and he had several other functions in the past, in the 20 years as he has been a part of the SDS. So there is a question: what would be his motive to be, I don't know, just one of the parties in this government again? To be, I don't know, the foreign minister again? I don't know. So this will be one of the most interesting questions to be answered, maybe as early as on Monday, but probably not. But it will depend on the mandates he will win.
Thanks. So I'm not so obsessed with Janša, but I think he is a quite important figure in the Slovenian politics. So now maybe a historical question to the historian Marko Zajc. So when Janša founded his party, it was still called the Social Democratic Party. How and why did Janša change, and why he could always survive in the Slovenian politics? Because he seems really a quite stable figure in the Slovenian politics. The left wing is always changing, but Janša is always there. So what is his story and the reason of his success story in a way?
Thank you. Very interesting question. First of all, he did not founded the party. He took over the party, and he just binded towards his own political agenda. But let's start from the beginning. Janez Janša was in the 80s youth official. He was member of the League of Communists, and in the 80s, the beginning of the 80s, he was actually more left. Especially in this, he was, of course, a defense expert. He was suggesting certain reforms that the Yugoslav army didn't like, so it was sided in the middle of the 80s. Then he turned out to be some kind of dissident. In the second half of the 80s, there was a lot of civil society was on the rise, like anywhere else in Eastern Europe. So he became more and more critical. His idea was to took over the league, let's say the Socialist the Alliance of the Youth, the Socialist Youth, which is the youth organization in socialist times. But it was at the beginning, at the end of the 80s, it became pretty much alternative politics with, I don't know, supporting gay, lesbian movement, punk, green movement, and so on. And when he was arrested in the 1988, during the fact that he was a journalist on Mladina, he had some documents. Then his story started as a national. He became in the 1988 some kind of a hero. He was imprisoned. Then, of course, he was let out. And then all those so-called Slovenian spring things that happened in the end of the 80s actually turned out to this establishing new political parties. Then it was 1989, which with all those changes in the East, and Janez Janša turned out to be the defense minister in the first democratic government, 1990. And then he's considered and supposed to be considered a hero because he was defense minister in the 10-day war. Although the fact that things turned out as it did, it was also were other factors that Slovenia gained very well. But then, why I'm discussing this, in the 1999, of course, it was ruled by, the first democratic government was ruled by the Demos. It was an anti-communist democratic coalition. They collapsed. Especially Janša's party, which was so-called Democratic Alliance, and Janša was proposing to turn out to the right. And, well, they split into the National Democrats and the Democrats, but Janša didn't choose any of them, and a couple of months later, he took over the Social Democratic Party. So Janša is a very stable figure and very, as Mansa already said, very skillful politician. He is able to set, he is the only one politician who actually made somehow some kind of movement around him, and also some would even say cult. Yeah. And then he tried, it was this, when he started with this, it was minority party social democrats, so it was anti-communist social democrats, it was very funny. But then Janez Janša, and especially there was big turmoil in 1994, when it was accused, Janez Janša, that he is actually preparing a coup, military coup, because he was defense minister at the time in coalition government led by the liberals. And actually, there are quite good proofs that Janez Janša was actually have his own para structures, military para structures. So the story of Janez Janša is always connected with secret police, secret police, documents, and also weapons. He was also involved in weapons trade, but always somehow trying to play his story of the Osamosvojitelj, which means the hero of independence, the one who gained the independence. He was fighting for Slovenia, so therefore he should want to clean our society into. But this was already present in the 90s. But now, every year he's going more towards the alt-right. As Manca said, he's getting more extreme. And his party started as an unconventional social democracy. In 2004, it was like trying to be typical moderate. The moderate center-right party now is still pushing towards the right. And yeah, Janez Janša is the central axis of Slovenian politics. Everything is turning around Janez Janša all the time. We are tired of it. It's like we are in some kind of limbo regarding that. As much as I remember, since when Janez Janša was first time arrested, I was 13. And now my daughter, in 2 years, she will also have the voting rights, and I think she will decide about Janez Janša. So it's really turning around. We are turning around in circles, but things are not going. We are not in the spot. We're going somewhere. And but it's also one thing that you need to know, that it's not very scientific to say, but on the political right there is only one sun. And this sun is shining, and everyone who tried against him, Janez Janša was so skillful, it was not successful. So the problem of Slovenian political scene is also a problem of political right in Slovenia, and things are not turning right because all the political right in Europe is center right. I think is turning more to the extremes, and this will persist the phenomenon Janša in the years to come, whatever happens. That's my opinion.
Thanks. But back to Slovenia. So maybe there can be also explanation for Janša that there is some kind of an ongoing culture war always in Slovenia. So even about the history, so between domovranci and partisans, and Janša constantly speaks of a communist and Yugoslav elite that holds the real power in the country despite changes in government, while of course the left is quite bored of having Janša for many years. So Mansarenko, how does this political divide manifest itself in the country? So can we say that there is really a culture war, and that is the whole reason why the Slovenian society and the party politics is so polarized?
First of all, I would like to say that Janša really needs Yugoslavia, and he really needs communism. This is his most potent political idea actually comes from the idea of the sort of secret society, people on power who are still, after all these years, holding the positions together. And he is fighting against these old structures, or elites, if you want to call them. And this is not, he's been doing this for years, and this is not uncommon. After all, Trump presents himself also as someone who's fighting against elites. About this polarization, I think this.
But one question: do you think that that Janša may write that because we can see this kind of post-communist elite from the Yugoslav period in Slovenia, they were mostly in the LDS. Then after they tried to reorganize always new parties. So can we say that even Janša maybe is right, saying that there is some kind of post-communist elite ruling the country?
I would say, I might be naive, but I would say that this communist or post-communist elite is quite old, and maybe they don't have time and energy to rule the country anymore. but at the same time, I can understand that it might seem to people that we are living in the constant LDS, liberal democracy world, because every party that came after the LDS was gone was in a way returning of the LDS with maybe new faces, but the idea of this liberal democracy remained. But I think this is the fault of the center left as well, because I would say that they don't have very strong political positions or ideological positions. Their main goal is to fight Janša, to be anti-Janša, and of course also to establish or have the democratic institutions and so on and so on. But this can seem a bit vague sometimes. And I think that here we can come here to the question of this polarization, that on one side we have Janez Janša, who is ideologically very strong, not necessarily coherent. He's a very adaptable politician, but the idea, this fight against elites, the elites that are ruling us, persists with different vocabulary, different images, but still this persists. While on the other hand, the center left is not really sure what is their ideological stance. So I think this cultural war is quite asymmetric. One side is more ideology driven, and the other one is more fragmented and even reactive. So the other side, the liberal side, is always reacting to Janez Janša, but not necessarily having their own political stand. And I think this is also the reason why so many former prime ministers from the center left couldn't repeat the second mandate.
But now we have Robert Golob. Maybe he can stay in power. And now Marko Zajc. According to current polls, the existing center-left government wouldn't no longer have a majority in parliament. But do you think there is still a hope for Golob staying in power, maybe with moderate right-wing parties? And what is the reason why this coalition of left-wing, central left-wing parties lost the support in society?
Well, first of all, maybe according to the latest polls, the Golob is going better. Mm-hmm. So especially the tracking polls, but doing by the newspaper Dnevnik and Nina Media company, they're tracking before the elections the trends. They're trying to capture the trend. The trend of the Golob is going towards is doing well, better than Janša now. But still, it's the question how many parties will gain in and so on. I think this is the story about that Golob and the left doesn't have majority. We cannot claim that. We will see at the day. Nobody actually knows. I'm certain.
Do you think even those three parties who are now ruling, they can have a majority? So they don't need a moderate right-wing whatever.
It's possible if no small parties like the Resnica is managed to the parliament, and they will then convince, and great, as Mitka Meyer says already, big turnout, and then it is possible. It's going to be a close call, but it's possible. It's possible also other way around, that only the right-wing parties can gain. And this government will be the most right-wing government Slovenia ever had. And of course, there's also a possibility that no one will gain it, and the Resnica or any other party, maybe even the Pirates, will enter the parliament. Then they'll need to make some kind of deal, and then this kind of mating dance will begin. Who will try to impress someone, and then maybe someone can jump over the ideological boundary, and we will see how will Democrats then react. It's really close call because it's a proportional system, 4% threshold, which I think it's quite a high threshold for Slovenia. It's very only 88 people who need to be there, and I actually think that it's still the possibility that actually this coalition can win, especially what is going now in the last time because of this. It's also what Mansa said, this reactive the reactive nature of Slovenian electorate who is against NATO, these tactical voters, and this is called by the social scientists tactical voters, waiting until the last time to be able to see if it's possible to which party. Of course, now it's Golob, but maybe also they would like to support Levica or Golob, or they change their mind very quickly, and then sometimes they opt for those who is going to win. So yes, I really think everything is open, and there can be also a couple of surprises which no one of the actors will be happy about.
Markus has mentioned this party Resnica, which is a populist EU critical party. So Matka Mayer, can you explain us a bit what kind of party is it? If they can enter the parliament, do they have a role by choosing who will govern?
I will quote one of my colleagues that went to spend a day with them because we had this in our electoral project, and he said it's very difficult to put one same idea among the people he met. So this is a party of only access in a sense that you have a lot of unknown and unanswered questions. But originally it started as an anti-vaccination movement in times of COVID, and as some kind of it grew from that to some kind of also anti-establishment, even allegedly pro-Russian and a little less European party. And they have this one leader that is that like represent this party, but as I said, the other people from this party are really a big question. What and how and what will they represent in the parliament? This is very much true. But what I do believe in terms of their political path till now is that this president of this party said that he will not go to either party, so not to to either government, not to the Janša's government, not to the Golob's government, and this is what I think he will not change. I think he even made some kind of a legal statement about that. He went to sign it to some lawyer, and so yes, as Marco said, it's very important whether they will come to the parliament, because this will broaden up or this will mean that their chances of this over the central government are bigger. Plus, something I also want to say when discussing all the scenarios are open, what is very important, I believe, and this is also something I think we can somehow take as certain, is that Janez Janša, now running for his 4th mandate, says he will not form a government that is not very, very stable and firm. I don't believe that he stated what does that mean in seats of parliament, but I believe that if this is just an assessment, but I believe if he does not, he speaks about the constitutional majority, but this is not possible. 66, I don't see that coming in a coalition. But 50, I would say that if he doesn't count somewhere towards to 50 out of 90 seats, I don't believe that he will. I really do believe that he will not form a government. He will not. That he will take a step back. This is what he said, and this is what I believe will happen, because in the past mandate from 2020 and 2022, he did had a minority government, and it was really demanding for looking for every single vote in the parliament for them. And I don't think that I think he's been through that, and I really believe that in terms of applying all the policies we would like to apply, that this is something that we can take a certain.
And back to the government, current government, still Metka Mayer. What were the most important achievement of this government? So maybe they can stay in power, maybe not, but what were the most success stories or the most important success of this government?
Well, what we can say is that the success of this government is that it has started some projects that were discussed in Slovenia for the past 3 decades that needs to be started. For instance, like the healthcare reform or the long-term care reform. But there have been several obstacles. One thing that this government has succeeded in is that we were all very skeptical very soon after it started the mandate, is that it will stay in this size in terms of the members of parliament. It almost actually did. And also Golob's party, that was a very new party. I really believe they didn't really even know each other. For instance, the 41 people that were at the start elected to the parliament, that this has stayed in some way. But I believe only mostly due to them being a lot of political newcomers that decided to just follow the main ideas of especially Robert Golob, because also Robert Golob, he was speaking, is a figure that is very much the king of his kingdom. All the party members really rely on his opinion and his decisions. He's a very much this is a very much one leader party. Sorry, do you hear me? Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Because I lost one ear. So they have started, as I said, the healthcare reform and the division between the private and the public. But I think what they have learned, for instance, is that it will be very hard in our system to. They have learned the Constitutional Court also told them, for instance, that stopped their health reform in totally splitting the private and the public healthcare. So this is something they do a big project, they go into it, they get the votes, but then somehow they're stopped by the reality and of course of the institutions themselves. So what I believe when Robert Golob always says that there are government for 2 mandates, that there has been a lot to learn in this mandate, and they had a lot of lessons, I would say, on the several subjects. And this, if they would go to the second term, maybe they will do some things differently. For instance, also, as I said, this is there has been a long-term care system set up. This has been also discussed for multiple years in Slovenia. Several laws have been written about that, but now it's coming to some kind of realization with a lot of obstacles yet again. But it is true that this is actually a project of the Levica, the most leftist party in this government. But there has been some progresses. So what I'm trying to say is that they have started some big reforms in terms of what needs to be addressed in this country. But whether they have been successful at this or not is another question.
Yes, so now we can look a bit at the election campaign, as I think, as Marko Zajc mentioned, that the outcome would be quite narrow. Maybe you may refer to a quite new scandal in Slovenia, which is quite important in the whole campaign, the Black Cube scandal. It's a quite strange story because Janša and the alternative media close to Janša, they accuse Golob, but also the former president Milan Kučan of corruption, of nepotism. They tried to publish some videos about this issue, but at the same time, the left-wing parties, the left-wing media, they claim that the Israeli company Black Cube is behind these activities, and we know that Janša has also met Dan Zorella from Black Cube. So it's a quite interesting story, I think, also for Austrian people. Marcos, can you explain us a bit what's going on? What is this story?
Okay. You were asking me. Sorry,
But
didn't hear
even others. So because I think it's
okay.
maybe it should
It
be a
was
project
just
of us to explain
on
it.
the line. Okay, I would try to say this. This is of course it was a quite quite a scandal. I think it was also a very nice play first about this. Trying to those tapes who came out of those people who are close to power, some kind of lobbyists bragging about how can they call, how can you reach a deal, how I don't know, the Ljubljana mayor needs 10% and stuff like that. They were recorded, and those, of course, this was recorded in a certain page that was redistributed by the right-wing media, and this page then just blank, and then this is coming all the time, and the campaign, it was very clear that Janez Janša knows from the outside what is going on, and he tempers this campaign. But then the left civil society, together with left-leaning left journalists, discovered, and they came out with this. They saw that there was a meeting. They came with a plane to Ljubljana with Black Cube, and that they have a proof that Janez Janša met with them. Janez Janša denies that. So it was a big day. It was the same day when they had a big fight together with pre-election debate with Golob. Golob was very harsh at the time, 2 days ago. So this is what happened, I think, is that maybe Janša was trying to steal the debate in the sense of Gramsci, you know, to have this hegemony of debate about corruption. And with this counterattack, he didn't really succeed. Now it's back to polarization. They accuse each other. Golob was very clear. It's high treason. It's very dangerous. It's about Slovenian sovereignty, which is very interesting that the left-leaning civil society and left-leaning politicians talking about national sovereignty, because usually national sovereignty is something that Janša is bragging about. So I think this has become really on a high levels. I don't know how this will play out. According, as I already mentioned, the latest polls, the latest tracking polls, this actually, I would say it would benefit more Golob than Janša, especially since Slovenian public is not pro-Slovenian but more pro-Palestinian, which is has proven numerous times. But we still don't know if Janša will succeed to, I don't know, to just discuss the politics to some people, and people will not attending the election. This also is one possibility. So once again, we'll have to see, and it's going to be really interesting how things will turn out. But in a way, I don't think that this effect that Janez Janša wanted on the political middle, or to mobilize some voters who are not political to go to vote against Golob, because it's terrible. Because you need to know his ideas. Janša's story narrative from the start of the election was everything is wrong, we are collapsing, it's just a corruption, let's clear the swamp kind of Trump ideas all the time. Nothing good came out of this government, nothing. And now this was some kind of crown of this, kind of crowned kind of proof. I don't think it played very well for him. And so now it's a really, let's say, it's a really polarized and clear pre-election fight that we are looking at, and we just enjoy the show.
Okay, Mansarenko or Matt Kamaya, do you want to add something to this whole Black Cube story? Maybe also because we have to say that as a private Israeli security agency. And as Marko Zajc mentioned, the Slovenian political society is more pro-Palestinian. So does it also role play in the whole story?
I just wanted to say that I'm really happy that Marko Zajc got this question, because probably he had the same difficulty as I would have. Like as a historian, it's hard for me to make up my mind on the affairs that happened like 50 or 100 years ago, and this happened a week ago. So I'm like, it's very confusing. I tried to read everything that I could, but it's a very strange story. And I think what I would say from just from, let's say, a feeling that I have about it, that I've as long as I've been into politics, I've never experienced something similar. So I'm not sure how to deal with this. And I think that this is also one of the, this is also how we can see that that Slovenian elections and also like the politics in general stepping into a new arena that has some new rules that we're maybe not used to reading them yet. So yeah, it's really hard for me to say anything. It's confusing. Yeah.
Metka Mayer?
Yes, I can add, not from a historical point of view, but from a journalistic point of view. And I always ask myself this question. Why do we, because we journalists have this tendency that for every electoral campaign we say, it's never been this wild before. And we are saying it again. But okay, I've been working in media for 20 years, and it's like, yes, please. I've been working in media for 20 years, and I can say I think it's never been this wild. But I don't know, because we always say that. I don't really know if it's true. But what has changed since the last, I don't know, in the past only 4 years, yes, is this enormous amount of channels that are different. That this has happened before, but also, for instance, we started this campaign with some influence of influencers on this campaign. Now we have the secret recordings. Of course, secret recordings are not a new thing in media and politics in history. They're not, but in this matter, they have not been so systematically used in a campaign. This hasn't happened.
But my question, the tape, for example, about the left-wing politicians or Zoran Jankovic, so the mayor of Ljubljana, saying that how they are corrupt, etc. Those tapes are real or they are manipulated? So what kind of tapes the Janša media did publish?
We also published. All the media actually published them.
Okay.
It became such a big story. But there are two types of tapes. Okay, one, this is what has started. I don't know. I think it was some 10 days ago. There were secret recordings of the current government representatives and one former Janša government representative, but somebody that is out of the picture now, published on this Facebook unknown profile. The masks are falling down. These are one thing. And this is an audio recording. These are audio recordings. And it says there's going to be 400 of them, but I think we're at 20 something. So we'll see. I don't think it will happen until the election. And these are the recordings where there have been, yes, also, this is where it started. Okay. So these are the recordings where the Freedom Party, that is the main target of this, said that they are AI also manipulated, that some of it is true, that some of the voices are okay, but they are manipulated and taken out of context. This is what we as journalists have to constantly think about, and this has gotten really a tough job. You have to ask for everything, about everything that is seen, whether it's real or not. This is becoming our job now. But there is a second type of recordings. This is a web page that has been set up. Help me, Marko, months, I don't know, maybe a week ago, I don't know. Okay, this anti-corruption, that is a web page, and now it has 10 tabs, but 5 of them have been published, I think. And this is where there are recordings where this possible, I don't know, this Black Cube, and there are allegations that this was involved here. These are real tapings of people that are something in Slovenian politics. And this has been a real operation. It seems real. Okay, all these people that have been recorded say also they have been manipulated or taken out of context, but nobody really said that this hasn't happened, because these are also video recordings, and there are a lot of things being said in them, and there are even lawsuits announced already. For instance, from the Ljubljana mayor to this famous lawyer. So this has been a huge thing. This cannot be only this is not a marginal thing. It is something that has gotten into this play, if I may say. But yes, of course, as also Marko and Manca, I think, already stated, it seems like the coalition has struck back here with this allegations or some information that the Israeli private security services were involved in this. Not directly, but through NGO and also some journalists. So yes, this is what we are dealing with right now, and as I said, it goes from hour to hour, waiting what will happen next.
And Mancarenko, does this Israeli background play a role in the Slovenian societies? Because it was mentioned that the Slovenian society, most of the left-wing parties, they are mostly pro-Palestinian, so that the Black Cube is from Israel. Is it something why the whole story at the end maybe can be dangerous more for Janša than for the left-wing parties?
I think that is certainly true. The majority of people in Slovenia, not only left-wing people, are very pro-Palestinian. And the idea that the Israeli, any kind of security services are part of our electoral campaign is appalling and scary to people. So I think this plays a role, but it also plays a role that, as we could read in the recent days, that the Janša's government had some deals with Israeli government regarding the equipment for secret service operations. So this might not be just the question of these leaks or these video recordings, but also the question of policymaking, also the question of domestic security. And I think this idea is also scary to people, and I'm surprised that secret services have such a strong comeback in 2026. Actually, I thought that was the thing of the 20th century, but I think it's coming back, and it's interesting to see.
It will be interesting, yes. But now, as you mentioned, Israel and Palestine, we can speak a little bit also the general foreign policy and how the government, if the government is changing, how the foreign policy of Slovenia can change. So Marko Zajec, an important difference among the right-wing populist parties in Europe is their relationship with Russia. So, and it was mentioned that Janša is still in the EPP. EPP is more pro-Ukrainian, pro-Atlantist, but Janša has good ties to Viktor Orban, who is quite pro-Russian friendly, while Giorgia Meloni from the ECR, she is also a right-wing populist, but she is quite pro-Ukrainian. So where does the SDS stand on this issue? Ukraine, Russia, is it more Orban-like or it's more Meloni-like?
Well, here I would say it's more Meloni-like, and Janez Janša is really supportive of Ukraine, and he was very happy when at the end of the mandate, when the war started, he was also traveling there with other prime ministers. It was quite dangerous at the time. So his idea, it was like being alive, like trying to revive his youthful Yugoslav war kind of period. I'm sorry to say that. I saw it like some revision of that. And yes, it's very important. He plays, as Manca said before, he plays very good double roles. And since here, in this position, he's really on the line with the European People's Party, supporting strongly Ukraine. It doesn't mean that he's pro. He collaborates with Orban again, and even more, he collaborates with Serbian President Vučić, which is obviously on more on the side of Russia, or he's the same playing this out. So he's a very good player with that. So this, and I don't think that this was pretty much a problem in the Slovenian society, although I think that for Slovenians it was even too pro-Ukraine from the Slovenian public opinion, because Slovenian public opinion is more like, let's stand the side we don't know, or there are some people also quite pro-Russian, I must say. We can find also a strong pro-Russian, relatively marginal, but still visible. So this could be very much Ukraine is on a line with the European People's Party, but supporting Israel, I think it's a more problematic for Slovenian side, because still the media is still relatively reporting all the atrocities that happened, and it's very clear in Slovenian public and Slovenian politics that this is the idea that there is a genocide is widely accepted, except the people on the right, they don't want to talk. It's very nice. It can be seen from the campaign. Whenever Janez Janša was asked about that, or Israel or something, he was just like, yo, we don't know, or war in Iran, or Trump. He doesn't want to say too much because he knows the electorate is not on this issue.
It is true that Slovenia is more atypical country in Central and Eastern Europe, because if you look at the right-wing parties in Hungary, in Austria, in Czech Republic, etc., they are really, or even the societies, they are more pro-Israelian, and the Slovenian societies and the politics looks like more like the French or Italian or Norwegian politics. That's true.
That's true. I don't think where can that. It's a kind of leftover of Yugoslavia, because this Yugoslavia was supporter of PLO, and Arafat was frequently in Yugoslavia, and but maybe it's also I don't know, this kind of this idea that I will say that the state of Israel never had this. That was not in Slovenian public like in Austria and Germany. In the East, that state of Israel is a democratic country. In the East, this was not accepted also in Slovenia. It's very critical of the state of Israel all the time. So people are can be more open about that. And this, what is anti-Semitism or what is not, is not bound to the criticizing of Israel. But that Janez Janša is supporter of Israel. I don't think this is not useful for him in this campaign. So she tries to distance themselves and not avoids things about that. And this affair got him back. So you're there, you're part of Israel, you're part of the architect of the destruction. This ex-general was one of the, as they claim, people and journalists, is one of the architects of the tactic in Gaza, so-called general plan. So it has a value. But we will see how it will play out. Because on the other hand, we said he's very strong on social media. And there's one thing that maybe it's not bounded to that. We don't know how much he unlocked the young voters in the countryside. How much we will get there. Because I have a feeling that's more successful that we are thinking. Because certain parts of Slovenia are completely, he dominates ideologically. So we will see how this play out. But this, yes, pro-Ukraine, pro-Israel, pro-Ukraine is something that it's very, very nicely fits into the European People's Party agenda.
And this pro-Ukrainian stance, it is something which is different to the current government, Metka Mayer, because we know mostly the Levica, so this radical left party, they were quite critical towards NATO, US. I don't know what is their opinion about Ukraine, but would you say that with Janša, the Slovenian foreign policy would turn into, of course, more pro-Israeli, but also more pro-Ukrainian?
Not radically, absolutely not. This is something the pro-Ukrainian stance was quite is, I would say, quite aligned all over the place on both political spectrum. But
Even among Levica?
maybe they are the most how to say conservative about that, but not really on this matter. Not really loudly. What they are, okay, they are against, for instance, for defense expenditures in terms of NATO and everything. But this is something that this government has made also Levica happen. Because why? Levica can always be against all of this, and in this sense, they run their program because the Freedom Party and the Social Democrats have enough votes to get things through parliament, and so this is a very how to say, very convenient position for Levica because they can still be loud on these issues, but nothing changes because it goes with the mainstream pro-European parties. And as it's already been mentioned by Marco, yes, at the beginning of the war, Janez Janša was one of the first with some of the Central European prime ministers entering Ukraine. He was very when the war started, so this was a very, very big thing back then. But in this sense, Slovenian politics is very much, I believe, more aligned than on the question of Israel. Yes, this government has recognized the Palestinian state as the state. This is something that they are really proud of. They mentioned it a lot of it in the campaign. And yes, Janez Janša's views are different on this particular issue. But as Marco also says, yes, the Slovenian people are to believe more generally very sensitive about what is going on, for instance, in Gaza. And yes, Janša does distance himself from really, really being clear on this matter.
Mansa, Renko, we mentioned that the Levica was quite critical toward the military budget issue, so they wanted to reject it. What is the foreign policy opinion and stance of Levica regarding Ukraine, NATO? Of course, we know what they are thinking about Israel. Maybe it's really aligned with the Slovenian society, but mostly about Ukraine and NATO and the Trumpian US.
I think they're very clearly against NATO. They're very clearly against Trumpian US and any sort of imperial wars. And with their stand on the Ukraine, I think they are. I'm not sure I'm right here, but I think they're quite their discourse is here quite toned down. They're definitely not pro-Russian, but they would like the war to end, and I think they are also quite empathetic towards it. But I don't think that's one of the strongholds of their political program. Or maybe Metka or Marco could correct me here, but this is the impression that I have.
No, I agree here, and maybe what is important here is, yes, of course, this is a pacifistic party, so they are against war as itself. It's not about that much about for them, I believe, taking sides, but it's about stopping the wars and not putting budgets into arms deals and wars.
But if Janša wins, it means that Slovenia will accept the 5% budget for military, and with Golob not, or even Golob would be willing to accept it. Maybe Zajc or Mansa, Renko.
I'm afraid they all would, but Janša would do it happily, and Golob would do it a bit more hidden and with Levica opposing. But I'm afraid I'm afraid they don't feel they have much choice. But maybe Marko thinks differently.
I think yes. Here I agree. They will do it both, but what Galop he has a different tactic. You know, they really have this promotion. Okay, now we have this demand. Things are what they are. So let's extend this military budget, but we cannot. That doesn't mean that we need to buy just crazy weapon. We can also build another hospital which will be used, or we can get some choppers who will be also used for the disaster stuff. So they're all, and it's going to be very good for our domestic science. There will be science project. We will also civil. So they're playing this game. Okay, we have this money now. But it's also impossible for Slovenian small army to spend this money that this demand of the NATO. So they have a lot of problem what to do with this. So this is one thing, and one let's say one perspective. I think that everyone will do now because the military budget, and we're not living in a kumbaya world, but it's a very different why and how this is implemented. Here also Levica comes into the story. And I think it was a couple of times that one of the coordinator, that Luka Mesic, said that yes, we are for the strengthening of the European defense, but that doesn't mean being with NATO. If the Europe will make their own defense, we're also up to a part into that. So it's this idea: if we're just crazy spending because Donald Trump said so, or this is of course everyone is opposing, but if this is going to be some kind of high policy in order to secure and things can also, the Levica could support that somehow, some kind of European force which will be under the civil control. That is also, we live in a dangerous world, so we need to take care of our own defense. So it's from a distance, it's a small difference, but actually it's a big difference how and why they could go in. They could then again claim this is defensive, and we are still for peace and stuff like that, and we are not supporting, I don't know, Trump's crazy ideas and stuff like that. Okay, that's my opinion.
And the last question to the foreign policy, and we are running also out of time, but the enlargement of the European Union is also an important challenge for the EU, and the commissioner for the enlargement comes from Slovenia, from Golob's party. So what is Slovenia's position on this matter, and would it change in the event of a change of government? So maybe Janša would be more willing to accept Serbia. What is the opinion of Janša about the enlargement of the European Union? Maybe Metka Mayer.
Well, there is this
enlargement. Is it a topic in the Slovenian politics, in the Slovenian campaign?
Of course it is. We have a commissioner for enlargement. This is something that was seen as a big win for the current coalition. Like, we have a special attitude towards the Western Balkans that you said in the beginning. So we are choosing whether we are a part of or not. And the stance of Slovenia is very much aligned with what this commissioner's views, of course. That yes, enlargement, but not for every cost. But also different stances. For instance, in this current government, there has been also, for instance, some changes to approach for Bosnia, to turn it around, to make that the European Union first makes a move and then goes to the conditions that the country has to fulfill. But this is a very hard question, because I see the main problem here, or the obstacle, the personal relation between, for instance, Janez Janša and this commissioner Marta Kos. Not a personal, but in terms of political views, because he will. This is not something that is. They are not political allies. The opposite, and his party in the European Parliament often makes some remarks also publicly, also about this commissioner itself. So, as I would see it, not maybe as in the changes towards the European politics of enlargement, but maybe to the personal, personal developments or personal deeds that this commissioner would do. This is maybe where I see would be the most changes, so to say.
Yeah. Now at the end, the question can come that all analysts hate, I know, about the election result. So I'm not asking you for specific percentages, but rather whether you think there will be a change of government or not, and is it still possible that neither Golob nor Janša will become prime minister? Maybe we will have a technocratic government or a central government with the other politician as prime minister, and it's for everybody. So maybe we can begin with Marko Zajec.
Okay, being a prophet and a historian doesn't really match. Okay, well, I think that this is there are, let's say, more or less three possibilities: left government, right government, and some kind of deal. And this deal will happen if there was going to be neither of the poles will be able to make this kind of decision. And this deal, I think, will only be there on the level of, I don't know, some kind of central reasoning, some, let's say, deal. And this, okay, does anybody hear me? Okay.
Yes, but I think we lost.
I think we lost.
Yeah, I
Peter.
think we lost Peter because I'm the moderator now. Zoom told me so.
So
It's not good.
do the people see us still? Okay. Let's say these three possibilities are there. So if they will not find any place, someone can hear the demands of history and jump to the other land. But we all see what Logar will do, and then we'll see. And this on this coalition, the central coalition, could only be on the basis of some kind of neoliberal consensus, I think. Okay, so I hope Peter will come back.
Yeah, I hope so too. If not, Metka, can you continue in case anybody is listening to us?
Yes, of course. Well, what I can say is I won't do that to myself now to predict a result, because it is only in mathematics. It's nothing else, because it's so much. It really doesn't matter whether Golob or Janša will win. It really doesn't matter, because it matters how many of the rest of the 4, 5, 6 parties will gain, and who will that be? And that is it. And that is, there are so many different yes,
Factors.
Yes, that will influence this, that it's impossible to say at this very moment. So we'll see on Sunday. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Peter. Welcome back. And you're muted. You're muted, I'm afraid.
So sorry, we had some problems with the internet. So I think Slovenia is a more developed country in this sense than Austria. So I don't know, Marko, did you answer the question?
Yes,
about
I've answered the question.
Thanks. And also Matka Mayer and you, Mensa.
I'm also in Vienna, and my internet seemed to be working. So
okay, then maybe
yeah.
it's in the ninth.
It happens.
District.
No worries. No worries. We kept on going. We kept calm and kept on going. I would say that I'm very afraid to say that many things depend on how Resnica will position themselves. And this is something that could change anything. In general, I like to play with different ideas that one could call maybe even like some sort of conspiracy theories. Like, for instance, that SDS gets the majority, but Logar becomes the prime minister. Because as Marko Zajc said before, what is in there for Logar if he's already been Minister for Foreign Affairs, right? And many parties say that they won't go into coalition with Janša as a prime minister. But what if Janša is not the prime minister? What if SDS has a majority? Logar is the prime minister. How will Social Democrats react? How will Resnica react? So I know there is a small chance of this happening, but this is something I like to think about.
I think it's definitely one of the possible solutions, definitely. And
so
yeah,
Logar as prime minister and with a quiet heterogeneous government.
It depends how it will turn out. But if the GOLOB will have the relative majority, it was very hard to do that. Then GOLOB will be the one who will start with those. And I think this may happen, that GOLOB will have the majority, but will not have enough to get the government. Then GOLOB will try to strike a deal with Resnica or with Logar, and currently, since he's leading the government, GOLOB can offer Logar more than Janša in a way. And so, yes, this central, it's also a possibility. But I still think if the three parties of the left, liberals, was by any chance, it's a close call, get the same constitutions, they will take that because it's the safe bet. So and of course maybe the right-wing coalition will also because easier right-wing coalition with Resnica than other way around. But I think we will see something that we haven't already seen. But it's the joy of proportional system. Our founding fathers, mostly they were men, they did make this system in the 1990 or 91 proportional system for a reason. Only Janez Janša was then sorry. Since the mid-90s, he wants to mind that. He wants to go towards the majority system because it's most suitable to his party. But this idea. It's also based on the history that there were two forces that were very strong. One was the Catholic Church, and was the Communist Party, or then before that liberals, and to oppose, try to go beyond this dualism of forces, let's say this everlasting fight between two sides. Let's have proportional system. Of course, this didn't stop polarization, but it makes everything more. It still enables somehow more space for different views and different alliances also. So that's my idea.
So thanks to the Catholic Church and the Communist Party, the story in Slovenia will remain quite interesting and open. And thank you very much for this very interesting discussion. I think we have now a good overview about the Slovenian politics, not only about the election, but the whole political situation, which is quite important to know in Austria even. And of course, our Institute IDM will, of course, continue to follow political developments in Slovenia with analyses, briefings, and events. We are organizing, as I mentioned, together with Karl Renner Institute and Campus Tivoli, always events and discussions offline or online about the elections from the country. This event was also live streamed on YouTube and will stay there, so everybody can control if we were right or not. And in April, Hungary will hold also elections. So there we can say about the urbanization of Orban or of Hungary. And we will have two events on this topic. So on the Hungarian elections here at the IDM on March 30, we will present a book on the media situation, followed by a discussion with the Hungarian media expert Gábor Polyák and two Austrian journalists, Wolfgang Rössler from Jetzt and Barbara Todt from Falter. And on April 1st, we will present a study we made here at IDM on possible scenarios regarding the Hungarian elections. The focus will be especially on whether and how the election results or the formation of the new parliament could be delayed, and whether the current parliamentary majority, so Fidesz, could limit or even block the ability of a possible new government to act. This study is already available on our website. I think the Slovenian situation won't be so radical than in Hungary the case is. And if you like to stay informed about our activities at IDM, I would warmly invite you to subscribe to our newsletter. And if you would like to support our work, you are also very welcome to become a member of IDM, because we are an organization where you can become also a member. So thank you very much for your attention. I was Peter Teget from Vienna, from Alsergrund, and also thank you very much for our excellent panelists and for your analysis. Marko Zajc from Ljubljana, Metka Mayer also from Ljubljana, and Manza Renko from Vienna. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.